Welcome to the Design, Create, Succeed, Lesson 3. And this one's all about the psychology of the sale. We're going to get into a lot more of the techniques and the thought process behind all of your conversations. So hopefully by this point you have implemented lessons 1 and 2. This lesson's all about how to now be more successful in each of those steps. So when we talk about the psychology of the sale, there's a lot that goes into this. The big thing is we want to know, how do people buy? Like, what goes into their mindset? So people buy products and services based on emotional needs and wants, and then they justify that purchase logically. Some are naturally selfish, including me and including you. If you want customers to buy what you have to sell, here's what you need to do. Forget about what you want or don't want and focus on giving them what they want and getting rid of what they don't want. Utility, getting rid of a problem that they have or something that they don't want, or creating a result that they want and don't have. This is the key to any sales here. And it really goes down to credibility. I know you've heard us talk about this, but it all comes down to trust. They have to trust you, and they have to trust that you can deliver on what you're promising. And why should they buy now? You have to be able to skillfully ask this question and listen carefully when you're asking those questions to lead them through this process. Ask questions to get the customer talking. And if you ask the right questions and if you're listening, exactly how to close them. So you want to know, what are your leading questions? When you begin probing, you want to be asking general questions. General questions are less threatening, and they get the ball rolling. They give you the information that you need so that you can know the direction to continue the conversation and having questions. Some general questions that you can ask are, well, what is it that you like most about your current product or service that you're using? What is it that you like the least? How would you like it to be different? And if you could design the perfect product or service to meet your needs, what would it do for you? Huge key in psychology is sell benefits, not the features. People don't care. They're really nice, but what does it benefit them? Cannot say this enough. Find the pain point of the customer and speak to that. This really comes by connecting to the emotion of the prospect. This is a really hard thing to train. I'll be doing some workshops in the future about how to do this. Not something that can be done in a really quick video. You have to be able to have the empathy to connect to what your customer's mindset is and what they're feeling. Always make the customer a priority. Their wants, their needs, their fears, that should always come before yours. Get close, interact, listen. This goes back to actively asking and listening, and this is what's going to give you the ability to develop that solution to their problems. Demonstrate a level about caring about them. It cannot be about making a sale. And a lot of this comes from developing the company's personality. People do business with people, but people also do business with companies that they perceive of having a personality. Nobody just wants to do business with just this entity or this corporation that they can't feel a connection to. There's a lot of this can be done with social media and turning the business into a friend and less of a business. And here's the thing, admit when you make mistakes and immediately confront and how you're going to fix them and then fix them. This lets your customers know that you're human, but you're also going to be responsible. So now look for yourself. What is your business's personality? If you're self-employed, if you're selling something else, what is the personality? What would you like that personality to be perceived as? On the topic of customer service, you may have heard the saying, aim for your customers' hearts, not just their heads. In other words, move simply beyond making the transaction with your customers. Create the relationships with them. There's a great article by the Gallup organization of customer satisfaction doesn't count. And they say if you do not make an emotional connection with customers, then satisfaction is worthless. And the research proves that customers do not buy strictly for rational reasons. So it's much more important to engage customers on an emotional level. Additional research also suggests that organizations that optimize and focus on this emotional connection outperform competitors 26% in gross margin and 85% in sales growth. Because in fact, emotionally engaged customers are 3 times more likely to recommend, so that's more referrals, 3 more times purchase. I mean, come on, that's the best customer is one that's already purchased something. They're less likely to shop around, and they're much less price sensitive because they see the value in the relationship and what's being offered. Positive emotional connections will ultimately drive the length and frequency of that customer's engagement with your organization. It's why we believe the power of service lies in its ability to create an emotional connection rather than a pure. What this does, and the key to all this, is it justifies the expense for what they get in return. People love to buy, people hate to be sold, but if they see value, people have no problems paying for it because they know they're going to get something that works. And in the end, you have to make sure you provide extraordinary service and very simply do the job that you're paid for. So now we go on and get into the psychology of the consumer. And there's 2 major theories. There's always 2 major theories behind the psychology of a consumer. The first perspective is behaviorism. And this branch of philosophy argues that people's actions are driven by an external stimuli. In other words, we become convinced to do things because of an outside influence. For example, if you have a particular affinity for a brand of shampoo and a commercial features an actor who reminds you of a person that you love, you might be more likely to buy this kind of shampoo. And all this works by no means at the surface. This is getting deep down into the psychology of a mind. The second is the cognitive approach. Now, on this hand, it suggests that our behaviors are caused mostly by our own mental processing. Cognitivists do appreciate external stimuli because they do exist, such as packaging or brand loyalty, which can have an influence, but they're not viewing it as the most important thing. So in this approach, for example, you may watch a commercial and you might be influenced by the actors, but from the cognitive perspective, it's the interaction between the external stimuli and your own rational thinking and mental processes that leads to buying something. So you want to create a powerful mindset. I know we talked about this before. We're going to go into a little deeper here. This is so crucial, and if you're not connected to your why or why you're doing what you're doing, then you're not going to be able to get a powerful message to your consumer. You're going to come across as desperate or self-serving. And one of the biggest parts of a mindset being powerful is how you deal with the fear that creeps in. It is inevitable that there's going to be fear, doubt of your ability to have the conversation, of complete the sale, or in some cases, maybe even deliver on it. And that fear is always going to be present, so you have to do something about it. So now, how do you deal with failure and overcome fear? So dealing with failure. To be successful in sales, you really have to create failure as something that can empower you. It's not a bad thing to fail. Failure can be the most beautiful thing in the world. It just doesn't mean anything about you. You're not the failure. It just means that there's a setback to the intended outcome. And just because the action doesn't succeed doesn't mean that the next one won't. And vice versa, just because one time you close the deal doesn't mean inherently it's going to happen the next time. This is why following those processes every single time is going to eliminate some of this. You have to learn from every failure. When you can get to the source of what that failure was, or what could have been done to change the outcome, you can now identify it the next time it arises. And as you get better at it, you can start to identify it before it even shows up. Best way to do this is to talk it out with somebody. Let someone ground you in reality and help you find your way forward. This is what bosses are great for. This is what coworkers are for if you have that great connection. And when you have created an environment of support, you will never be alone in your endeavors. Don't be afraid to ask for support, because you're going to be providing a service for those closest to you by letting them have the opportunity to contribute to you. Obviously, you have to have that relationship with somebody. You can't just go up to the top sales producer and expect it. If you develop the relationship, they're going to then want you to succeed because they like you. When there's a failure, give yourself time to dwell on it, and when that time is up, move on. Give yourself 2 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it happens to be. Don't go too long and too far down this rabbit hole. Feel bad, feel there, and then just get over it. I'm going to be blunt here. Just get over it and move on, because it will drag you down all the time, and you have to hit that reset button. Then you get back on the horse right away. Just don't wait. Don't dwell on the moment. Once you move past that, get back to that why, get that mindset back, and get back to the next conversation. And as you're doing this, rehearse to improve your reflexes so you recognize these signs earlier in the conversation. You can turn them around. A lot of this happens with practicing and mocking conversations with co-workers and with managers. So then overcoming fear. This is a really great one. The simplest way to overcome fear is to identify what the source of your fear is. And usually it's not what you think it is. This is a very hard thing to do yourself, but it can be done. Know that it's often something from the past where you have failed and now you're afraid of having it happen again. That's just the real simple aspect of it. You can try to move past fear, and that's going to work for a little bit. You're going to hit a plateau, and eventually you're going to get exhausted. Why? Is because this gives credence to the fear. It gives it existence. It gives it power, because you're saying that the fear exists and that you have to overcome it. That gives fear power. So I attended a great speaking event by Townsend Warsaw. You can always look him up on LinkedIn. And he talked about this, and he talked about overcoming this really great methodology for overcoming fear. What he says is that you start by bringing that fear that lives in the shadows out into the light. Just say what it is that you're afraid of out loud, even if it's to yourself. Start here, and just by saying it often helps alleviate the fear that one holds in its mind. And the reason why is because your mind is clear. You can take action from a place of clarity and not from fear or scarcity. You're not giving it existence, you're giving it a reality, and then you almost start to laugh at the what that fear is. That gives you power. So now you have the power over the fear instead of the fear having power.